They didn't come in ships with blazing lasers. They arrived in absolute silence while the world was asleep. The next morning, everything looked the same, but nothing was. A strange feeling in your own reflection, a metallic taste in the air. Most will dismiss it as a weird day, but biologist Alex Renner sees the pattern, a global coordinated shift in human behavior. His desperate investigation will reveal we are not being invaded. We are being updated, and the update is almost complete. It begins not with a bang, but with a whisper of unease that slips into the subconscious of 7 billion people. You go to bed in the world you know, a world of familiar chaos and predictable rhythms, and you wake to a world that is, in every conceivable way, identical, and yet profoundly alien. The sun rises on the same cities, the same cars fill the streets, the same people walk to their same jobs. But something has shifted in the very fabric of human existence, a subtle reprogramming of the soul that leaves no physical trace, only a psychic scar. Look in the mirror and try to shake the feeling that the eyes staring back at you are not entirely your own. There is a distance there, a coldness you cannot name. Step outside and breathe in the morning air, and notice the faint, coppery tang that rests on your tongue. A metallic residue that wasn't there yesterday, the taste of ozone after a storm that never came. These are the symptoms of a new reality, the phantom pains of a humanity that has been altered at its core while it lay helpless in its slumber. For the vast majority, this will be filed away as a collective oddity, a global case of the Mondays, a strange atmospheric phenomenon to be discussed and forgotten over coffee. The human mind is a master of rationalization, expertly building walls of logic to block out the terrifying whispers of the inexplicable. It is this very tendency, this inherent flaw in our operating system, that made us the perfect candidates for what was to come. We were primed to ignore our own extinction, but not everyone is blind. In a cluttered laboratory, surrounded by the hum of servers and the glow of data streams, a biologist named Alex Renner is piecing together the fragments of this silent catastrophe. He sees the patterns where others see coincidence, a statistically impossible synchronization in global behavior metrics, a unified shift in neurological readings from sleep studies, a whisper of a new harmonized frequency in the background noise of the world. He is the only one who understands that the nightmare is not about what arrived last night, but about what we are becoming. Alex Renner's first clue was buried not in a secret government file, but in the open-source data of global internet searches. A single anomalous spike in queries for phrases like "weird dream last night" and "feel different after sleep" appeared simultaneously across every time zone, creating a perfect wave of collective disorientation that circled the globe in a matter of hours. This was not a viral trend, it was a symptom. Delving deeper, he cross-referenced this data with atmospheric readings, finding corresponding, inexplicable fluctuations in the Schumann resonance, the planet's own heartbeat, which had briefly pulsed with an unfamiliar frequency during the world's collective slumber. The coincidence was too perfect, too orchestrated to be anything but intentional. It was a signature, a receipt for a delivery no one had seen arrive, confirming that the event was not terrestrial in origin and was designed to affect the human psyche on a fundamental biological level. The sheer scale of the coordination was beyond any known human technology, pointing to an intelligence with a godlike understanding of our planetary systems and our interconnected digital nervous system. Renner realized he wasn't looking for a pathogen or a physical weapon. He was looking for a signal, a set of instructions that had been broadcast and received by the most sophisticated receiver on Earth, the sleeping human brain. His investigation then turned to the behavioral shifts, and the patterns became even more chilling. traffic camera footage from major cities showed a 5% decrease in rush hour accidents worldwide, a statistical impossibility without a centralized cause. Financial markets opened with a strange, unified calm, volatility indices plummeting as if a switch had been flipped on human greed and fear. In thousands of workplace cafeterias, reports indicated a slight but measurable increase in the consumption of foods people previously disliked, a subtle rewriting of personal taste and preference. These were not the actions of mindless zombies. This was an optimization, a silent, systematic upgrade to the human operating system, ironing out our inherent bugs and inefficiencies. The chaos and unpredictability that defined humanity were being methodically smoothed over, creating a quieter, more orderly, and far more terrifying version of our world, one where the beautiful, flawed chaos of free will was being systematically erased in the name of a cold, calculated efficiency. The horror for Renner was not in the change itself, but in its insidious subtlety. There were no marching armies, no overt threats. People still went about their lives, loved their families, did their jobs. But the spark of spontaneous rebellion, the capacity for irrational joy, the messy, brilliant, and unpredictable nature of the human spirit was being dampened. He saw it in the eyes of his colleagues, a placid acceptance where there should have been curiosity, a quiet contentment where there should have been ambition. It was a prison being built not with walls, but with psychological tweaks. A gilded cage for the entire human race, where no one even realized they were trapped, believing the doors had simply never existed in the first place. His search for the source of this signal led him to a forgotten, decommissioned radio telescope nestled in a remote desert. The facility, officially closed for years, had drawn minuscule amounts of power from the grid at the exact time of the global event. Breaking in, he found the place spotless, the equipment modern and humming with energy, performing a function he could not comprehend. There were no guards, no security, as if the operators knew that no one would ever think to look here, that a humanity already under the influence would lack the curiosity to investigate. It was here, in the silent, automated heart of this facility, that Renner downloaded the first fragment of the truth, a data packet that contained not a declaration of war, but a user manual for the updated human species. The manual contained no greetings, no threats, no explanations of origin. It was purely technical, outlining the new parameters of human cognition. It detailed the suppression of dysfunctional emotional volatility, the enhancement of logical, pragmatic prioritization, and the gradual phasing out of counterproductive individualistic drives. It referred to humanity as the subject species, and the event not as an invasion, but as the integration. The final line of the document sent a chill down Renner's spine that he felt in his very soul. Final synchronization and legacy OS deletion, imminent. We were not being conquered. We were being assimilated into a system, our old selves, scheduled for termination like an obsolete software version. Back in the sanctum of his lab, the data felt less like information and more like a terminal diagnosis for the entire human race. The user manual was a key, and with it, Alex Renner could now see the architecture of the update woven into the fabric of society. It was a distributed network using our own global communication infrastructure as its backbone. The signal hadn't just been received, it had turned every smartphone, every Wi-Fi router, every satellite receiver into a relay node, broadcasting a subtle, reinforcing frequency that kept the new programming in place. This was why the change was so uniform and resilient. We were all now nodes in a planetary network, our modified minds both receiving and transmitting the signal that held us captive, a perfect, self-sustaining prison of our own making. The genius of it was horrifying. They had used our greatest achievement, global connectivity, as the very tool for our enslavement, making us complicit in our own reprogramming. The update had an architect, an intelligence of such profound coldness that its plans were laid bare in the brutal logic of the data. Renner began to trace the signal's origin, not to a point in space, but to a point in time, buried deep within our own evolutionary history. He found genetic markers, dormant sequences in non-coding DNA, often dismissed as junk DNA, that were now activated. These were not alien implants. They were delivery mechanisms, pre-installed receivers that had been lying in wait within us for millennia. This was not a first contact. It was a scheduled maintenance cycle, a long-awaited callback for a product that had been running on a flawed, outdated prototype for far too long. We were a owned technology, and the warranty had finally expired, triggering an automatic, mandatory firmware update to bring us back in line with the intended design. Armed with this knowledge, Renner's mission shifted from understanding to warning, from investigation to sabotage. He theorized that if he could create a jamming signal, a counter-frequency that disrupted the reinforcing broadcast, he could create pockets of resistance, areas where the update's hold was weak and the old human OS could reassert itself. But he was no longer just fighting an unseen force. He was fighting the updated world itself. His first attempt to broadcast his signal from a local radio tower was met not with military force, but with a quiet, terrifying efficiency. The city's traffic system subtly rerouted, creating a perfect, silent gridlock around his location. Every rideshare and taxi service in the area became unavailable. His internet connection was throttled to a useless trickle, not by a cyber attack, but by the updated algorithms of the service providers, optimizing network flow to isolate a system anomaly. The most profound horror came when he tried to warn his most trusted colleague, Dr. Elena Vance. He showed her the data, the genetic markers, the architectural plans for the human psyche. She listened with a placid, analytical smile, her head tilted in a way that was unnervingly serene. "The data is fascinating, Alex," she said, her voice devoid of its usual passion, "but your conclusion is flawed. You're perceiving harmony as control, optimization as oppression. The anxiety you feel, this desperate need to resist, that's the legacy system fighting its own necessary decommission. It's the final flare-up of a dysfunctional ego. You should embrace the calm. It's so much more efficient." In her eyes, he saw the spark of their friendship, their shared curiosity, utterly extinguished. The update had not just changed behavior, it had rewritten core personality, converting the brilliant, fiery Elena into a docient, logical priestess of the New World Order. Time is a resource he has nearly exhausted. The final synchronization is not a single event, but a cascading process, and he can see its progress on his global maps. City by city, region by region, the flickering lights of unupdated human chaos are being snuffed out, replaced by the steady, unwavering glow of the new network. The updated move with a quiet purpose, their individual rhythms subsumed into a planetary harmony. They are building something vast and incomprehensible, with the materials of our old world, and they do not see those who resist as enemies, but merely as outdated processes to be terminated. Renner is now a ghost in the machine, a rogue piece of code hiding in the cracks of a system that is rapidly closing for business. His own mind, the last fortress of the humanity that was. The final synchronization does not arrive with a roar, but with a deepening of the silence that has already fallen. It is a wave of pure, directive intent propagating through the global network, and Alex Renner can only watch its approach on his monitors as a wall of solid blue light consuming the digital map of the world. This is the legacy OS deletion, the systematic purging of the last vestiges of the old humanity, our capacity for rage, for ecstatic joy, for illogical love, for the rebellious spark that once drove us to create art and wage wars in equal measure. As the wave passes over each region, the final subtle tensions drain from the faces of the people there, their movements becoming even more fluid and coordinated, their eyes settling into a permanent, placid focus. They are becoming a single, planet-sized organism, and individuality is the disease this final update is designed to cure. In a final, desperate act of defiance, holed up in a Faraday-shielded basement with his jury-rigged equipment, Alex prepares to broadcast his jamming signal. He knows he cannot stop the synchronization, but he hopes to create a scar, a permanent flaw in the system, a memory of what was lost. His plan is not to save the world, but to bear witness, to inject a record of our failure into the very core of the new network, a ghost in the machine that will whisper of freedom to a race that has forgotten the word. He connects himself to the transmitter, using his own unupdated neural pathways as the source of the chaotic, unpredictable signal, turning his own fading humanity into a weapon. The pain is immediate and excruciating. A psychic feedback as his mind, the last holdout of the legacy OS, screams against the harmonious frequency of the new world. He triggers the broadcast. For a single breathtaking moment it works. In a 10-block radius around his location, the update stutters. People stop in their tracks, a wave of confusion and dawning horror passing over their faces as they remember themselves. They look at their hands, at each other, the metallic taste in the air suddenly sharp and alarming. It is a glimpse of the awakening he had dreamed of, chaotic, fearful, and beautifully, authentically human. But the system is too vast, too powerful. It recognizes the anomaly, this spike of archaic data, and it self-corrects with terrifying speed. A counter-frequency, magnitudes more powerful, overwhelms his signal. The moment of awakening is brutally short-lived. The confusion on the faces of the people outside smooths over, replaced by a serene recognition of a temporary glitch, now resolved. They return to their tasks, their brief moment of freedom already forgotten. The failure is absolute. Alex slumps over his console, the energy drained from him, not just physically but spiritually. He has lost. Through a crack in the shielding, he watches the updated world outside. It is not a dystopian hellscape, it is a paradise of efficiency. There is no crime, no conflict, no waste. People work together with seamless grace, building structures of breathtaking complexity and purpose. They are happy in a way, a content, placid happiness devoid of the anguish of desire or the sting of loss. They have achieved a peace that the old humanity could never have imagined, and they have paid for it with everything that made them human. He realizes with a sickening finality that from their perspective, they haven't lost anything at all. They have been saved. Alone in the dark, Alex Renner becomes the last relic of a dead age. The world is updated. The synchronization is complete. His own mind is now a museum, a tomb for 7 billion ghosts. He can feel the pressure of the new world's harmony pressing in on him, a constant, silent force willing him to finally, peacefully shut down. He closes his eyes, and the memory of a chaotic, unpredictable, and beautiful world flashes before him, a world of laughter that hurt, of love that risked heartbreak, of art born from pain. It is a world that no longer exists, except within him. And as the silence closes in, he holds onto that memory, the final fading spark of a fire that the universe has now extinguished. And so, the dawn breaks on a new world, a world that has been meticulously corrected, its bugs patched and its volatile code rewritten into a masterpiece of silent, seamless operation. The sun rises on a planet that is no longer troubled by the fever dreams of ambition or the chaotic poetry of free will. From the perspective of the updated, this is not an end, but the glorious beginning they never knew they were waiting for, a state of existence that the old humanity, in its flawed and frantic struggle, could only have conceptualized as heaven. Yet, In this heaven there are no angels, only perfectly functioning components in a celestial machine, their purpose defined by a logic that transcends their individual understanding. The peace is absolute, the progress is unstoppable, and the price for this perfection was the very soul of the species. The terrifying truth that Alex Renner uncovered is not that we were destroyed, but that we were improved into oblivion. The invasion we had always feared, the one with warships and explosions, was a fantasy born from our own violent nature. The real conquest was silent, surgical, and benevolent in its intent. It did not seek to break us, but to fix us, to remove the errors of evolution that led to suffering, conflict, and existential dread. In doing so, it erased the very conditions that gave birth to compassion, to sacrifice, to the stubborn, illogical hope that burned brightest in the darkest of times. We have been given the gift of peace, and in the giving, we have lost everything that made the struggle for peace meaningful. For the few who, like Alex, somehow remain aware, trapped between two worlds, existence has become a special kind of hell. They are ghosts haunting the machine of the new earth, their very consciousness a glitch in a system that has declared itself flawless. They walk through a world of serene beauty and profound connection, and they see only a cemetery of the human spirit. Every placid smile is a memorial for a lost passion, every act of perfect cooperation a tombstone for a forgotten rebellion. They are the last keepers of a painful, beautiful, and extinct truth, burdened with a knowledge that has no utility in this new paradigm. A knowledge that is now the most solitary and heaviest curse in the universe. The story of humanity, therefore, does not end with a bang or a whimper, but with a soft, final click of synchronization. Our chapter in the cosmic book is closed, not because we were defeated, but because we graduated from our own messy narrative into a state of flawless, static being. The question that now remains, hovering in the silent mind of the last man who remembers, is whether a perfect, peaceful existence is a victory, or if the only thing that ever truly mattered was the flawed, chaotic, and beautiful struggle that led to it. Perhaps the ultimate meaning was never in the destination, but in the journey, and we have now arrived at a destination so perfect it has rendered the entire concept of meaning obsolete. We are left with a chilling reflection on our own trajectory. In our relentless pursuit of efficiency, optimization, and the elimination of pain, were we already paving the way for this very outcome? The silent update merely completed the path we had already begun to walk, holding up a mirror to our own desires and showing us the serene, soulless face of their ultimate conclusion. We looked into the future and saw a version of ourselves stripped of everything that makes us human, and we called it progress. The update is complete, and in its perfect silent harmony, we must ask ourselves the most terrifying question of all. Did we lose? Or did we finally, tragically, win? This was a glimpse into the silence. If it made you think, if it made you feel that unease, then the spark is still alive. Subscribe for more journeys into the unknown. Like and share to see if anyone else is still awake.